Hello and welcome back to my channel, Mostly Florals. I'm so glad you're here. Today we are going to create a bright and loose wildflower illustration using just one of Procreate's default brushes. It's super fun and relaxing, so let's get started. For today's illustration, we'll be using a canvas size of 4950 by 3900 pixels, and I'll be working with this bright and beautiful wildflower color palette to create a spring-inspired garden. I've added a Gumroad link in the description box below where you can download this exact color palette for free, so feel free to follow along using the same one. So here's my canvas, and I'll be using the Gloaming Brush, which is one of Procreate's default brushes, so you already have it. And this is my Wildflowers color palette, and I'm starting off with this rich maroon shade right here. So I'll be starting off with some simple oval shapes like these. I'm not worrying too much about getting the flower shapes perfect. These are going to be small flowers, so I'm painting 4 of them in these irregular loose shapes. Then going back to my color palette, I'll select this peach shade from here. We'll go with this one. Zooming in and reducing the brush size, I'll start drawing some simple little details to represent the petals. These will be more like roses, but in a very loose and free style, nothing too defined or rigid. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to continue painting the details on the other flowers as well. It's honestly so therapeutic to paint like this without overthinking or worrying too much about perfection. Simple shapes and soft details can be so relaxing, and I'm sure you're enjoying this too. And this brush, it's just lovely. The texture is absolutely gorgeous. Now I'll go to the color palette and select this light lavender shade. Then heading over to the layers panel, I'll tap the plus icon to create a new layer. Here I'm going to increase the brush size slightly and start drawing some irregular shaped circles, just soft loose circles in different sizes placed here and there. I'm keeping an eye on the overall composition, making sure everything feels nicely balanced. So one goes here and another there, and maybe one more over here. Yep, I think that looks good now. Now I'm going to the color palette and select this darker purple tone, and then go to layers and tap the plus icon to create a new layer, and then turn on clipping mask. Zooming into this flower, I'll start painting some radial lines like this, kind of like radiating petals. I wanted something a bit more fun for these flowers, so I thought this style would add a nice playful touch. I'll be doing the same for all the flowers here. It's such a fun little exercise. I really enjoy painting like this. It's always exciting to explore new ways to add details instead of repeating the same elements every time. Personally, I love painting details. It's one of my favorite parts of illustrating. Let me know in the comments, do you enjoy adding details or do you prefer working with flat colors? Now I'm going to the layers panel, duplicate the masked layer, and alpha lock one of the copies. Then heading to the color wheel, I'll select a darker purple tone and just drag and drop it into the layer. So now all the details are filled in with that deeper color. Next, using the selection tool, I'll slightly move it across like this to create a subtle glitchy effect. It looks so pretty and adds such an interesting twist to the flowers. Now I'll go back to the layers panel, merge all the layers together and keep them as one. Then I'll tap the plus icon, create a new layer, and bring it all the way to the bottom to start with the next element. Now selecting this light peach tone, I'm going to get started with my next flower. So let's begin painting it. This one will have long leaf-shaped petals like this. Zooming in, you can see how the white gaps between strokes look like natural petal details. I really love that effect. Here goes the second petal, just like that. I'm honestly so happy with this brush. It creates such a beautiful texture. And that's my third petal. And once that's done, I'll continue painting the other flowers, placing them carefully into the blank spaces like this. This brush is absolutely wonderful, and the best part, it's one of Procreate's free brushes. And as you can see, if you lift your pencil and paint over it again, it creates a darker overlay which adds even more dimension and makes the petals look extra beautiful. Now onto the final flower in this corner, just making sure it doesn't go out of the canvas, keeping the whole piece balanced and contained. And that's it, it's done and looks really nice and well balanced. So now let's move on to the next spot. Now I'll go to the layers panel, tap on the plus icon and create a new layer. Then I'll select this green shade and let's start painting the stamens and stems for the flowers. I'll be painting these for all the flowers, just pulling the stems all the way down to the base of the canvas. Since we are building a wildflower garden, I'm drawing right over where needed to help create a sense of depth and dimension, and just keeping the stems simple and clean enough to hold each flowers nicely. Now I'll go to the color palette, select a darker tone, and then I'll lock the stems layer so I can add a few shadows here and there using this darker green shade. There are some areas where the lines are overlapping, so I'll just clean those up using the eraser tool like this. Okay, so that looks better. Now going back to the color palette, I'll choose this green shade, go to the layers panel, tap on the plus icon and create a new layer. I'll bring it below the stems layer and start drawing some stems and details for the other flowers, these spider looking ones. Just simple lines again, easy stems to hold them in place. Now I'll continue by drawing some long simple leaves like this. I'll fill them in with the same green and place them wherever it feels right, just to help balance the white space and maintain a good overall composition. Since we are building a slightly crowded wildflower garden, I'm just filling in more leaves, adding them in where it feels natural like this. So yeah, fill, adding just enough greenery to make it feel lush and lively. Now I'll go back to the color palette, select a lighter shade and draw a few little details on the leaves like the center vein. Just some simple lines to give them structure. These small touches really do make a difference. The details always bring things to life. It's also such a relaxing part of the process for me. I love adding details. It's honestly therapeutic and super calming. And if you're just getting started with Procreate, I think you'll come to love adding these kinds of touches too. It's so much more fun than just filling in colors, at least for me. Now it looks good, everything feels well balanced and nicely composed. Now I'm going to the layers panel, tapping on the plus icon to create a new layer and dragging it below like this to position it properly. Next I'll go to the color wheel and select this green shade from here. Now let's start drawing the stems to hold these rose-like flowers. It's totally fine if the stems look a bit wobbly, that actually adds to the charm. And now I'll continue painting the leaves for all the flowers. I'm loosely imitating the look of rose leaves, but keeping the style fun and relaxed. Just make sure to place the leaves nicely in the white blank spaces where they fit naturally. So now I'll go ahead and do this for all the other flowers. Now I'll go to the color palette and select this dark green tone. I'm going to start adding some details to the leaves, like the veins, and I'll do this for all the leaves just like this. And once that's done, I'll head back to the color palette and make sure I'm working on a layer right at the top. And now I'll select this orange shade from here and let's start drawing some long petaled flowers. They are kind of like sunflowers, but not exactly, just my own take on them. And there's no specific number of petals or strict shape here. I'm just painting what feels right, trying to fill in some of the blank areas. And to add some depth, I'm darkening a few petals here and there on the same layer, just to give it a bit of shading and variation. Since these are wildflowers, they don't have a specific name. I'm mainly focused on creating a nice contrast and spreading the colors well across the illustration. Okay, just one last flower here and then that's done. Now going back to the color palette, I'll choose a brown shade and paint the centers of these flowers just loose and simple like this. Then I'll grab a very light shade, almost like an off-white, and add a few bits of details around the centers for some extra interest. Now going back to the color palette, I'll select this dark black brown shade and paint some seeds in the center of the same flower. Just a few simple dots to enhance the floral centers. Now I'm going to the layers panel and creating a new layer, placing it just below the top one. I'm selecting this dark yellow shade, it's kind of a greenish tone, and I'll start painting some stems and leaves for these flowers. I'm keeping the style loose with slightly thicker stems to help fill up more space and making the leaves flowy and relaxed. This part is such a fun way to fill in those blank areas. So the goal here is to reduce as much white space as possible since we won't be adding a background for this piece. So I'm keeping the overall look wild and colorful. Now I'm going to the layers panel and creating a new layer right at the bottom like this. I'm selecting this chrome yellow shade and I'll start painting some very loose buds, kind of like lavender, but instead of purple, I'm keeping it bright yellow to add a pop of color to the illustration. Just very simple loose strokes in a cone shape like this, building it up with dots and circular brush motions. Super simple and nice. These are just very basic elements, but they really make the illustration look so much better, and this shade definitely adds a lovely pop. Now going back to the color palette and selecting a darker tone from the same color family, I'm going to add a few circular strokes like this to create some outlines around this area. Just very loose, rounded shapes to give the seeds a bit more definition and depth. Now selecting this green shade, I'll go back to the illustration and add a few stems like this in the background, placing them within the white spaces, wherever the gaps are most visible, without making the illustration look too crowded. Just positioning them carefully like this and drawing in a very loose style again. So since these are in the background, they can look a bit like shadows, which is why I'm keeping the tone light. I'm also adding some long, thin leaves by applying a bit of pressure and pulling downwards, just simple streaks that resemble wild leaves for these flowers. Now back at the color palette, I'm going to select this bright blue shade. I'll create a new layer and start drawing some simple 5-petal tiny flowers to fill in the white spaces. This is one of my favorite parts. It really makes the illustration look so much better and cuter. And I'm absolutely in love with this vibrant blue. It brings such a fresh spring vibe to the piece. Just add these flowers wherever needed without overcrowding. Place them neatly and thoughtfully, as composition is super important to make an illustration look more balanced and beautiful. So once that's done, I'll select this peach tone and paint in some simple dots for the centers of these flowers, just like this. Now going back to the color palette, I'm selecting this very light green shade, then reducing my brush size, I'll draw some thin strokes as stems for these flowers. These are just in the background, so they don't need to be perfect, just a few strokes here and there to make sure the flowers don't look like they are floating. This also helps fill in some of the white spaces since we are creating a wildflower garden. I just want a few more areas to feel full, so I'm adding little lines and strokes here and there. I'm also pulling out a few strokes with light pressure to create some simple leaves, again to help fill those empty spots. This is a great way to build up the background when you're not using a full colored backdrop, just a mix of short and long strokes here and there. It's all coming together so beautifully, and I'm really happy with how this illustration is turning out. It's giving such lovely springtime vibes. Now going back to the color palette and selecting a darker tone from the same color family, I'm going to alpha lock this layer and add a few shadows. You can slightly increase the brush size and add some shadows here and there to make it feel like the elements are sitting in the background. As you can see, adding shadows really makes a big difference. It adds depth and brings the whole illustration to life. Just a few touches here and there. These little details definitely help the artwork look more polished and complete. I'll also include a PNG file of this wildflower illustration in my Gumroad shop, so you can download it and use it for any of your projects or even as a simple mobile wallpaper. And if you download it, leaving a quick review on Gumroad would mean a lot. It really helps me out. That's it for today's illustration. It's all done and I love how it turned out. It looks so full, bright and colorful, just like the wildflower garden I had in mind. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I hope this was fun and helpful for you. It's a great loose style exercise using just one of Procreate's default brushes. If you followed along, tag me on Instagram at mostly.florals. I'd love to see your work and share it in my stories. See you in the next tutorial. Until then, take care and happy creating!